For 2 years, an American soldier in Iraq carried a photograph of a woman he had never met, tucked inside the chest pocket of his vest. But the day he finally learned who she was, he sat down in the middle of the desert and could not stand up again for almost an hour. It was the summer of 2005, near a small forward operating base outside the city of Ramadi, when a 24-year-old soldier from Ohio named Marcus Bell picked up a single crease photograph from the floor of an empty house. Before we continue, subscribe to this channel, because every week we uncover forgotten human stories from the Iraq War that history almost left behind. It was the summer of 2005, near a small forward operating base outside the city of Ramadi, when a 24-year-old soldier from Columbus, Ohio named Marcus Bell picked up a single creased photograph from the floor of an empty house. Before we continue, subscribe to this channel, because every week we uncover forgotten human stories from the Iraq War that history almost left behind. The patrol had entered the building at 4:17 in the afternoon. The air inside was 41 degrees Celsius. There was no furniture, no clothing, no sign of recent presence. Only a thin layer of fine sand covered everything, the kind of sand that settles slowly when a place has been quiet for a long time. Sergeant Marcus Bell was the third man through the door. He cleared the back room alone, and in the corner of that back room, under a broken window frame, he saw a small piece of paper resting face down on the floor. He bent down, he picked it up, he turned it over. The photograph showed a young Iraqi woman, perhaps in her late 20s, standing in front of a stone wall. She was wearing a dark blue dress with a faint pattern of small white flowers. Her hair was uncovered. She was holding the hand of a child, who had been carefully cropped out of the picture, leaving only the small fingers wrapped around her own. She was not smiling, she was not sad. She was simply looking directly at the person holding the camera, with an expression that Marcus could not name. On the back of the photograph, written in pencil, were 3 words in Arabic and a single date. The date was from 1998, 7 years before the day Marcus picked it up. Marcus did not show the photograph to his squad. He did not log it as recovered material. He folded it carefully along the existing crease, and he placed it inside the chest pocket of his vest, behind the small plastic card that held his blood type and his service number. He told himself he would translate the writing later. He told himself he would return it on the next patrol. He told himself many things that afternoon, none of which he ended up doing. 2 months passed, then 6, then a year. The photograph stayed in his vest. He carried it through Fallujah. He carried it through the long winter of 2006. He carried it on the morning his vehicle was redirected at the last minute, and the patrol behind him ran into a road that should not have been open. He carried it on the day his best friend went home early. He carried it on every quiet night, every loud night, every night in between. Sometimes, in the dim light of his cot, he would take it out and look at the woman in the blue dress. He never knew her name. He never met anyone who recognized her face. He showed it once to an Iraqi interpreter named Yusuf, who studied it for a long time and then said only, "The writing is a blessing, not an address." Marcus rotated home in the spring of 2007. The photograph went home with him. For another year and a half, it sat in a small wooden box on the top shelf of his closet in his apartment in Columbus, beside his discharge papers and a single shell casing he had brought back without remembering why. He did not look at it often. He did not forget about it either. In October of 2008, Marcus attended the funeral of a fellow veteran in a town outside Cleveland. After the service, an older woman approached him in the parking lot. She was in her early 60s, dressed simply, holding a small handbag with both hands. She introduced herself as the aunt of the man who had been buried that morning. She had come from Michigan. She had heard Marcus served in Ramadi. She wanted to ask him something. Her younger sister, she explained, had moved to Iraq in the early 1990s to teach languages at a university. Her sister had married a local engineer. They had one daughter. The family had lost contact with them after 2003, during the early months of the war. The aunt had been searching ever since, sending letters that came back unopened, calling numbers that no longer answered. She did not know if her sister was still in the country. She did not know anything, but she had made a promise to herself that she would ask every American soldier she ever met if they had seen a woman in a blue dress with small white flowers. Marcus did not say anything for a long moment. Then, very slowly, he reached into the inside pocket of his jacket. He always carried it now, even in civilian clothes. He took out the photograph. He held it out to her without speaking. The woman looked at it. She did not cry. She did not gasp. She simply pressed her fingertips against the image, very gently, as if she were afraid that pressing too hard would make it disappear. Then she said, in a voice that was almost too quiet to hear, "This is my sister. This is Layla." And the small hand that was cut off the picture? That is her daughter Noor. They were taken when Noor was 4 years old. Marcus learned, over the next 3 hours in a small diner near the cemetery, that Layla had been a teacher of English literature, that she had loved old American films, that she had named her daughter Noor, because the word means light. He learned that the family's house in Ramadi had been emptied during a relocation in 2004, and that no one had heard from any of them since. He learned that the aunt had spent 14 years searching for a single proof that her sister had once existed in a place she could point to on a map. That afternoon, Marcus drove out of Cleveland and pulled his car over near a quiet stretch of farmland east of the city. He sat down on the dry grass at the edge of the road. He held the photograph in his hands. And for almost an hour, he could not stand up again. He had carried her face for 2 years without knowing her name. And the moment he learned it, he understood that he had not been carrying a photograph at all. He had been carrying a question that someone else had been asking for far longer than he had been alive. Marcus Bell never returned to Iraq. He gave the original photograph to Layla's sister that same evening, and he kept only a copy for himself, folded in the same way, in the same pocket of an old jacket he never threw away. The aunt continued her search for several more years. She never found her sister, or her niece, or any final answer, but she said, many times, that knowing the photograph had survived the war was its own kind of homecoming. Some objects, she once told a local newspaper, are not lost. They are simply waiting for the right hands to carry them the rest of the way. The story was never officially recorded. It exists today only in the memory of two families who, for a brief afternoon in Ohio, became one. If this story moved you, take 1 second to leave a like, because every like helps another forgotten Iraq war story reach the people who need to hear it. Subscribe to this channel and turn on the notification bell, because every single week we bring you another quiet, human, unbelievable account from a war that most of the world has already started to forget. Tell us in the comments which detail stayed with you the most: the photograph itself, the aunt in the parking lot, or the silence in the desert. And if you know a veteran or a family who lived through those years, share this video with them, because some stories only find their way home when somebody decides to pass them on. We will see you in the next story.